Hello dear friends and welcome to Sotnik TV. Our today's guest is Ramiz Yunus, a political expert on the Middle East. He spent many years working in Saudi Arabia, Yemen and took high posts in the parliament and the government at Azerbaijan. Hello. Good evening, let me welcome you Alexander and all the viewers of yours. Let's begin our discussion with the situation around Syria. A wave of attacks by Turkey swept the province of Idlib, as well as the rest of the regions over there. Supported by Turkish army, Syrian refugees are now invading cities, busting the military led by Assad's regime out of there. Do you think that Turkey will now manage to turn the tide in own favor? Thank you for that question. Alexander, you see, in order to reply to such a comprehensive question, first we need to explain to the audience in a few simple words what's actually going on there, what's that all about, and the possible future scenarios. When I talk about the province of Idlib nowadays, on the first place, I recall the relationship between Turkey and Russia. I would compare their relationship to a marriage of convenience, when a husband and a wife can't stand each other any longer and would prefer to split apart, yet possess some joint property and have some joint problems. So they can either make a deal solving those issues or turn the whole thing into a scandal. For the past few years we may recall such incidents as the death of the Russian pilot and the political beef between the two countries following that story. First of all, Russia imposed economic sanctions against Turkey, banning its agri-products from import and prohibiting own citizens to visit its resorts. But as the result, that marriage of convenience made them go for it really, and so there was peace for a certain time. But there's an issue remaining on the agenda since the times of the Soviet Union. That issue is a national security threat for Turkey. I'm talking about the problem of Kurds. No matter who is at power in Turkey in the times of the USSR or today or tomorrow, they do not allow independent Kurdistan at their borders. Out of 85 million citizens of Turkey, around 20 million belong to Kurds and live at the borders with Syria and Iraq. There's a Kurdistan in Iraq and a Kurdistan in Syria with a population of 35 to 40 million in total. So such scenario is out of the interest for Syria, Iraq and Turkey. That's why it hasn't been implemented so far. And for the leading world states, their interest is to use Kurds for their political needs all the time. 40 to 45 years ago, when Turkey got into NATO, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, also known as PKK, was established at the border of Turkey. Its armed wing has been waging war all that time. 30 to 35,000 Turkish military have been killed in that conflict, not to mention the casualties among Kurds. That issue was removed from the agenda for some time after the USSR collapsed. There was no major force to stand behind Kurds at that time, so no one played that political card. But after that story in Syria began, when Saddam Hussein was overthrown and the whole situation got shattered, many countries were seeking to fish in the troubled waters. Iran and Russia were among those countries. Yet Kurds were the US allies back then, and they fought on the ground. The Euro Union and the United States don't really wish to fight on the ground, ever since the confrontation with the USSR ended. So after the USSR collapsed, that was out of agenda for some time. And they tried to use the local means, such as the local political powers and even some local countries. The local citizens were used in that Syria story. Turkey used its refugees who gathered in the province of Idlib and received its support, while the US supported Kurds staying in Syrian Kurdistan. The US have abandoned those lands, leaving those to Russia in the end of the last year. The traffic line between the cities of Tehran, Baghdad and Damascus is now controlled by Iran. Meanwhile, Russia has been fortifying its military bases there. The base in Tartus has been enhanced, as well as the one in Latakia. The goal of Russia fighting for Idlib province is adding another military base that would grant an additional access to the Mediterranean Sea. And if you ask me about the interest of Turkey in that region, I will explain. For say, a buffer zone on the territory of Syrian Kurdistan was established by Turkey in the end of the year. Everyone ignored that. Just to make it more clear for the audience, let's compare that to the 1967 Six-Day War between Israel and Syria that took place by Golan Heights. Now the province of Idlib is a totally different land that makes another problem. Idlib can be named the Donbas of Syria. That is a Donbas in Syria for Turkey. It has the goals in Idlib similar to those of Russia in Donbas. By means of Donbas, Russia is trying to influence the political climate in Ukraine. It shatters the situation that doesn't allow Ukraine to join the Euro Union or NATO and to develop apart from Moscow. And Turkey does the same thing in Idlib. Back in 2011, the US, the Euro Union and Turkey set the common political goal of Bashar Assad overthrown. And Russia only got there in 2015, as you may recall. That was when Barack Obama and his administration set their final goal of taking the bastion, as the only city remaining under Assad was Damascus. Around 95% of the country had been liberated by that time. But 2015 was the year of the US election campaign, followed by Trump coming to power. That left Turkey all alone facing Russia and Iran in that confrontation, trying to overthrow the regime of Bashar Assad. The Western powers, such as the Euro Union and NATO, don't use a system approach solving those issues. Meanwhile, Russia and Iran do. They set clear goals and achieve those. If you ask for my opinion on the current situation over Syria, I would admit that Russia and Iran made progress and wonder. They declared certain goals and achieved those. The other thing is what that will lead to in future and how the further story goes. We understand that Erdogan won't be able to withdraw his troops, as that would require him to explain why would he send the troops there initially. Just like Putin is not withdrawing from Donbas, as that could harm his image inside the country. Over 13,000 of Russian soldiers have been killed there already. Everyone sees that being a bloody massacre. They now fight for the key city of Sarakip. The city is crossed by M4 and M5, the two major highways. So that was the fight during which the Turkish soldiers were killed. That made Turkey reinforce, as highways play the key role in such conflicts. So Russia will have to deal with that. As of today, Turkey is more capable for fighting on the ground in that region than Russia is. Russia only has around 15 planes there, while Turkey has over 200. Turkish ground forces are really impressive and considered the second powerful army in NATO. I don't think that Russian soldiers are willing to keep dying there, as they already do. Turkey won't give up on that territory, and the situation is quite serious. Putin and Erdogan are reportedly meeting on February 5th. And if they don't make a deal during that meeting, I'm sure that Turkey will go to the end. In such case, they won't avoid the direct confrontation. The regimes of Assad and Putin in fact made some progress reaching their goals. But that was only due to the United States withdrawing troops from that territory and leaving a sort of vacuum behind. And once a serious force steps in, those countries retreat, having neither serious military equipment nor enough people. That fight for Sarakip is getting tougher. Russia declares to have sent its military police there, but that may turn out fake. And the question arises, is Erdogan ready to go into war against Russia? Those declarations about the military police are not in vain. They seem to be testing Erdogan, trying to see if he is ready to strike at Russian forces. What do you think about that? Well, Erdogan has made many mistakes in foreign policy. First of all, he is an authoritarian leader. He did wrong things inside his own country. There had been a state overthrow attempt, and he tightened the screws. Democracy violations were detected back then, but still Turkey is no Russia. That has now been living in democracy for decades. They have elections as well as their true opposition. Moreover, such cities as Ankara and Istanbul are now controlled by the opposition, as their mayors belong to it, and the position of mayor in Istanbul is the key to becoming the president. That was how Erdogan got his post. So around half of the citizens there oppose Erdogan today. Yet there are national security issues, and that's where the entire community, including the opposition, supports him. They have supported his decision on creating that buffer zone, and now they support him on Idlib. God forbid him withdrawing troops from there, as he will have to explain, so the community in Turkey agreed upon that issue. And Erdogan has already addressed the United States as well as NATO and the Euro Union. The US politicians have confirmed their standing on Ankara's side. The main question as of today is whether the direct confrontation is coming. In fact, that is already on. Yet neither Moscow nor Ankara accept that. Moscow blames Syria and so does Ankara. No one believes those stories anymore, as those are made up for every man. But if we imagine some major direct conflict accepted by both sides, that is something totally different. That works some other way, and that's when NATO needs to consider Article 5 of its own charter, of what needs to be done when its member gets under attack. First of all, the West needs to support Turkey with its politics today. A military support is still out of agenda now, so Turkey handles the whole thing by means of its own resources, as the West may worsen the relations on the world scene by providing a military support. So everyone hopes that Putin and Erdogan make a deal, and Putin will realize that he needs to step back. That is some serious issue, not for an everyman. It's important to have the political think tanks, experts and intelligent agents all over the planet. Make those leaders demonstrate enough of their political will. Thank you so much for that conversation. That was Ramiz Yunus from the USA. My name is Alexander Kushnar. Thank you for watching. I see you soon on Sotnik TV.